Oh
Yeah.
my Lord, this is
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. So
Excellent.
you guys still hear me,
Kuldeep,
right?
I really liked you as a professional. I now love you as a professional.
Yeah.
True.
Oh, fun stuff.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining this podcast. This is going to be a fun conversation. Three of us coming from different backgrounds, but similar passion. Uh, so let's dive in. First of all, Kuldeep, congratulations on publishing your book, Strengthen Your User Research Superpowers. So I'm super excited
Thank you.
to hear from you about your journey. You have a storied career in user research and user experience design, and now you have a book that's out there. Uh, I'm very interested in knowing your journey. What prompted you to write this book? So I'm going to kind of start with that question. But before we kind of get into a Q&A, uh, tell us a little bit about your background. Not many people may not know your background and your industry experience. So tell us a little bit about, you know, how you have got where you are.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Abhijit Toser, and welcome Abhijit Khadilkar as well. And for all the viewers, this is not how I usually dress. This is primarily to help promote the new book called Strengthen Your User Research Superpowers. And so Abhijit, thank you for asking that. I've been in Silicon Valley since the late 90s. The dot-com boom is what got me here after my master's program. Never looked back. This has become pretty much home at this point in time. Worked for PayPal for almost a decade, spent 8 years at User Zoom, which is now user testing. And right now I'm a senior partner at UX Reactor. Always worked as a designer or researcher. And so I run the user research practice. I was pretty much the first dedicated user researcher at PayPal back in 2004. We're a much smaller company then. It was a high growth company. And the 10 years that I spent at PayPal really did wonders for my career. Still love the company. And a whole bunch of things that are in the book are personal experiences, things that I learned during those 10 years, as well as during the 8 years at UserZoom.
Fantastic.
We all know PayPal mafia goes above and beyond across many facets in Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
and Kuldeep is another example of that.
Yeah.
So kudos, Kuldeep, great career trajectory, and we're here to learn from you, quite frankly. And we got a chance to read the book, so thank you so much, and we're super excited. So over to you, Abhijit Toser.
Absolutely. And Abhijit Khadilkar, since you're holding the mic, I want you to kind of also do a brief introduction for our audience. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and I know you have been doing a lot of bleeding edge work in AI, and you have uh, you know clients that you're working with across industries. So you are really kind of looking at some of the new advancements in the field, especially in the tech sector, and then of course now that's spilling over to the other industries as well. Tell us a little bit about your background and your experience working with design and research.
Indeed. Well, Abhijit Toser and Kuldeep Kelkar, thank you so much for having me here. Super quick background. Most of my career was spent in management consulting. Please don't hold that against me. I worked with multiple Fortune 500 companies, helping them transform their business model, their strategy, operations, technology stacks. Um, and then after that, joined Cisco, ran product for about 5 years, and then started Spearhead. And we are a AI consulting firm, and we are helping companies across industries transform super quick. We help companies in the first mile of value, which is companies that are creating new products and services. So we help them with product strategy, building out AI products, monetizing those products, go to market. And then companies that are in the final mile or the last mile of value creation, companies that use AI to drive efficiency, productivity, customer experience, etc. So yeah, things are super exciting in this world. We use a lot of design, user research as well, because we need to find the specific areas to create AI value where AI generates ROI, and user research and design is very much a part of that, and happy to work with Kuldeep in many aspects here. And with that being said, actually, Abhijit Toser, I'm super interested in your background as well. So if you don't mind, if you can share, because I see you all the time at AWS events, Stanford, Lead, and so many other exciting things when you are not riding your motorcycle. So please share with us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. No, I'm excited to be both of you on this podcast. I think just hearing your journey, Abhijit Khadilkar and Kuldeep, your background in research and design is super exciting. Little bit about me for the audience. My background is very similar to Kuldeep. I come from the industrial design background and have been in the field of design for last 25 plus years. Uh, my focus pretty much all through my career has been solving really hard and complex enterprise problems for a variety of industries. Just like Abhijit, I have spent my early part of my career in consulting. So again, don't hold me against that. Hold it against me on that. But I think the consulting, working across different industries, different domains, different countries, different cultures, has really kind of helped me develop a more holistic point of view in terms of really solving and understanding the problems that we are seeing across industries. And my role at AWS is essentially, working across set of industries that we are focused on, and trying to work backwards from some of the really gnarly, wicked industry challenges and problems that we are facing. We call them as durable problems that are going to persist for a long period of time. And we are diving deep into those industries, trying to understand what those challenges are, and then hopefully come back with transformative products for those industries. So that's in a nutshell my role. I'm going to bring the focus back onto Kuldeep and his latest book. So Kuldeep, I'm going to go back to my question about what prompted you to write this book. So I'm very
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, yeah.
What was that moment where you say, "Yes, I need to write a book now"?
Yeah, I had been um, asked that question, and every time I try to go back to a moment, and sometimes it's hard to pinpoint at a moment. So my story here is that I'd been writing articles for a while. So one article at a time for almost last 10 years or so. And and I took a 3-month break last summer, 2023. That's when the actual pen to paper uh, uh, work began. Honestly, it took me 3 months to just organize the thoughts and reorganize the thoughts. Like any software development or any product design, even book writing clearly is an iterative process. I had lots of different thoughts and ideas in different articles. So I guess for those that don't know, my background essentially is suggesting the 52 superpowers, the 52 cards, like a deck of cards, are 52 chapters. Each chapter is 2-3 pages, easy to scan, easy to read. So some of these chapters were already written in the past, and so bringing it all together, organizing, that took 3 months. Then writing the book took 3 months. I'm a first time author, self-published. I routinely say that every mistake that can be made, I probably have made them and continue to make them. So I learned book publishing in the hard way. So to answer your question, I don't know that there was a particular moment, but the pen to paper really happened last summer.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm glad, so glad that it happened and you had that time and space that you created to write a book, because I understand, it's a lot of thinking. You need to kind of go into your own shell, really kind of put all your experiences together, everything that you have learned.
Yeah. Yeah. So
How much?
Abhijit, the one thing, sorry, that I can tell you is I didn't start one day saying, hey, I should write a book. It was more around have all these different thoughts, have all these different articles that have been published. I have this idea about a book, but how do I organize? How do I bring this all together? That was the hardest part. I actually learned partial inspiration to Abhijit Khadilkar as well. I know you have a book out there, and why don't you narrate your story as well?
Yeah, well, thank you, Kuldeep. You're too kind. But I think in some ways, as you were telling that story, the book came to you rather than you going to the book, which is absolutely amazing. And that is your gift to the world of user research, product research, tech, and any company that is building sort of user-centric products and customer-centric products and services. I think this is an amazing book. I actually read through it, and the 52 deck of cards make a ton of sense. And we're going to actually ask you a lot of questions. But just to answer your question super quick, I think a lot of the pieces of my book, Unlock, came through just interactions as part of my coaching practice, helping other people. And one fine day, my mentor said, "Hey, you need to basically compile all of this information into a book." And so here we are, and it became a book. So thank you for the call out. Back to you. Let me give the talking stick back to Mr. Toser.
Perfect. No, thank you, Abhijit. And I think both of you are really, truly inspiration for many people like me who are still dabbling whether we should write or not.
Dude, now that means you need to write a book, Mr. Toser, but let's continue.
Perfect. No, thank you. And Abhijit, for the viewers, for the audience here, the name of the book, you want to kind of talk a little bit about Unlock. I think people would be interested in knowing a little bit about your book, the title, and what's it about.
Yeah, the book is called Unlock, Seven Steps to Transforming Your Career and Unlocking Your Leadership Potential. And it's available on Amazon, like Kuldeep's book. So you should go search for Kuldeep's book as well. I think if you read either books, whether, I think you'll get a lot of, practical takeaways. So for example, Kuldeep's book touches on strengthening your user research superpower. So as you do user research, there are many practices that you should take advantage of. And it's hard to remember all of those. And what Kuldeep has done is he's codified all of those practices into a very easy to use and in a very visual format. And I'm really grateful that he's done that. And just in terms of touching on my book, Unlock, it's basically got 7 steps. It's got a series of templates, and it's also almost like a step-by-step view of how should you think about your career, how should you think about leadership. And leadership is not a title. It's basically an act of kindness, courage that basically we should exercise almost every day to help our teams, our organizations, and our communities, and create value for all of them.
Perfect. No, absolutely. So well said, right? And I think role of user research in in the corporate world or even any enterprise or any company is that, right? We are showing the future. We are opening up the box of possibilities based on deep insights about what the human needs are, and really kind of working backwards from those needs to come up with products and services that not just meet their needs, but kind of go above and beyond those needs, right? So that's really the power of user research. So I'm going to come back to Kuldeep and ask him, as a researcher, right? I'm going to ask him a question, right? Kuldeep, you have done research at companies like PayPal and other places. What has been the most memorable research project that you have done and why?
Probably several. It's hard to pinpoint on one specific research, and so in the last 8 years, working at UserZoom user testing has been consulting pretty much with hundreds of customers. And Abhijit, as you know, the user research UX world can tend to be a little bit lower maturity. The entire argument of my book has been that designers and researchers struggle to demonstrate value, make an impact or show that impact, influence stakeholders like product managers, marketing people, even technology leaders. But then on the other hand, I've never met an executive that says that they do not care about customers. Every executive that I've ever met absolutely wants to be customer centric, right? I honestly have not met anyone. If you guys know of someone, please introduce me to them, because every executive that I meet, they want to be customer centric. They want to their organizations to be customer centric. And here are designers and user researchers who want to be customer centric, yet they can't seem to always cross the bridge, and hence the 52 superpowers. So how does this relate to your question? What is my favorite project? So I go back almost 20 years ago or 18 years ago. This was early on in my career, where I was engaged in two different aspects of PayPal. One was the merchant services, which was visiting customers, visiting merchants. These were small and medium-sized businesses, to come back with that open-ended direct observation and impact the product roadmaps, right? That was highly fulfilling. So many researchers want to do that type of discovery research, but don't always get an opportunity. And so I got that opportunity, and then I was always grateful for it. It built my confidence, but it also did good things for my career. The other one was what we call UX benchmarking. And so for anyone that is not familiar with UX benchmarking, as the term suggests, it's quantifying. So many people think design or UX is more just look and feel, right? Or that, hey, I like versus you like versus somebody likes it. People generally think that it is only attitudinal, and that it is based on perception of people. That's not entirely wrong. There's always the qualitative measures are important, but UX is more focused on how something works. Can people use it, right? And so I got the opportunity way back in 2004, 2005 to benchmark the PayPal checkout experience, the eBay checkout experience, the Amazon experience. This was now what, 20 years ago, 2004, 2005. And those types of higher sample size UX research studies literally got me to the CEO of eBay back then, all the way to the board of eBay. I was young and naive, and I probably still am I mean, look how I'm dressed right now, but 20 years ago, I absolutely was. And these types of engagements build the confidence and the courage that, hey, we can make an impact. And then there is a way to do it. And some of the chapters actually narrate these stories, and I have recommendations, and I call them superpowers. But if I had to pick, I would pick those two.
Fantastic. Now, power of direct observations, getting in front of the users, observing users in their own environment, is such a powerful research technique and
Yeah,
method.
I mean
Also,
to
one of my favorite.
double, yeah, yes, to double down on it, which is, see, the argument always is that, hey, I can do the observation, anyone can do the observation, and they should. But trained designers and researchers know how to peel the layer of what customers are saying down to the root cause of what the problem was. And then that becomes the inspiration for solving those problems. And all three of us know very well, to come up with a great innovative solution, you need to spend time thinking about the problem, have a deep understanding of that problem. And I think all of us are saying that techniques and tools and practices available from the land of user research are really good at that deeper observation of the problem. You can ask the customer how to solve it. I'm sure they have an opinion, but at the end of the day, we are product leaders, we are designers, we have to solve it, not just rely on what people are saying, but we have to rely on what they are doing right now.
Oh, so well said. And what you just said just also triggered an recent observation from Matt Garman, who is the CEO of AWS. He said something really profound, right? He said that customer obsession is not same as just talking to the customer. Talking to customer is not just customer obsession. You need to kind of really go and understand what their needs are, right? Very often you talk to the customer with a solution in mind, and that's not customer obsession. That's not research, right? So I think that's so well said that you need to go in with an open mind and observe and focus on what is not stated by the users, right?
Yeah, and if I can add a bullet point there, which actually comes from it does come from Amazon, which is innovating on behalf of the customer, because the customer himself or herself can't really innovate. Customer may not have the resources. Customer may be just a consumer of your products and services. And to innovate on behalf of the customer is to understand their pain points, their challenges, and their aspirations, their expectations. And some of the things that Kuldeep is outlining here is so important for us to understand, use, implement, and make that part of our daily lives as a habit so that we are focusing on the customer always, focusing on the user always. So yeah, that innovating on behalf of the customer is something that's really interesting to me. And Kuldeep, the tools that you are sharing are absolutely in alignment there with that thought process.
Brilliant. Thank you, Abhijit. And in fact, what you said also triggered another thought and quote that I heard a while back is that doing research with customers is great, but you also need to do research with non-customers, right? Understand people who are not using your product and why they're not using your product and why they should use your product, right? So are
Yeah,
there
or how are they solving the problems that you are wanting your product to solve, right? Yeah, it's very, very likely that people have figured out a way to solve that problem. You're just coming up with a better mousetrap. But to come up with a better mousetrap, you have to understand where the mouse is, what the mouse does, what the pain mouse brings to the people that are trying to trap them, right? And once you do, well, then it might spark an innovative idea in building that better mousetrap.
perfect, perfect. So, Kuldeep, I'm going to ask you some more practical questions people have about user research, right? I'm going to start with the first one, which is, user research is expensive, right? In a sense that it's a time and effort and money intensive process. Recruitment is hard, is demanding on users' time. So, what are some of the practical tips that you can give to the audience, right? How do they address these challenges? How do you convince your leadership that they need to invest in user research? As you rightly said, everyone knows that customer is important, talking to customer is important, but we don't see the kind of investment that we expect to see and efforts that we expect to see in doing that.
Yeah.
What are the things that you have seen working to get
Yeah.
that kind of commitment?
Thank you for that question. Actually, there are several chapters in those cards that will address that. So, but I'll try to keep it short, right? And there's
You don't
actually
want to give
almost
everything away to the audience. You want
yeah.
them
No,
to
it's yeah.
read the book.
Buy the book and read the book, and
Yeah.
and you'll absolutely get answers to those questions. The the simple answer, though, the short answer is that it doesn't have to start in an expensive manner. And it's all related to the maturity of the organization. If someone is just starting small, then you don't have to spend millions of dollars. Actually, the cost per study has been steadily declining for the last 20 years. Technology, and even before AI and now AI, is bringing down the cost of getting feedback. There's more than one ways of bringing that feedback to the product design organization. And so 20 years ago, uh, the PayPal story, we had to spend almost $1 million in today's dollars to build a lab and then execute research. Well, these days you can go online and there's at least 5 to 10 tools. I've listed all of them in the book, including user Zoom user testing. And you can, within the next hour, you can build the study, launch the study, and start collecting data. That was not the case 20 years ago, but these days it's much faster. So the cost per study is absolutely declining, but my argument still is that you don't have to start big, start small, start now, start with a handful of customers. I even argue in the book that, hey, this might feel scientific, and it is. I mean, I have a master's. There's plenty of people on my teams that have had PhD in this, but customer observation doesn't need a PhD at its core. And so find effective, there's a chapter called guerrilla testing. Get started. Right? If you don't have resources, start small. Start with a handful of participants. have some basic training around what to do and what not to do during a customer observation. It is not a sales pitch. And now for mature organizations, there are chapters around demonstrating ROI. Every executive that is making business decisions wants to make sure that they're getting the return on their investment. If you are running your own business, you are going to do the same, right? This is not someone doesn't care about UX or design or research. It's plain and simple. Every investment decision has to have some sort of an ROI. Not all projects can have an easy way of calculating ROI. There are several ways. You don't need an MBA. There are at least a couple of chapters that address the ROI issue. And my argument, I've seen successful teams are really good at narrating all the things that they have done, all the impact that they have brought to the organization, and making sure the wider organization understands what you are doing, why you're doing it, all the way down to why you as an individual are valuable to the organization. So on the lower end maturity, get started, guerrilla testing, that's fine. On the higher end of the maturity, be diligent about demonstrating that value through structured QBR, quarterly business reviews, or computing and calculating and essentially demonstrating that ROI whenever possible.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that makes a
Great.
lot of sense. Let me actually piggyback on that a little bit and maybe ask Kuldeep first and then come to you, Abhijit, for that question, which is around qualitative and quantitative. And when we think about user research and we think about collecting data and we think about, well, how do we generate or evaluate the ROI for this? And Kuldeep, you articulated this really well, which is some of this is you can quantify dollars and cents, and that is important. That is absolutely core to developing a business case to make a new product strategy or a strategy shift, or you want to pivot to a different customer segment, or you want to change the way the product is organized and the features are and capabilities are provided to the customer. There's so many opportunities to transform the experience. And I would love your perspective on qualitative and quantitative methods. And if you can share with the audience, what are some of your sort of go-to qualitative and quantitative methods or your approach towards those methods? And then maybe we can also go to Abhijit and maybe get his views on that based on his experience as well.
Yeah, what are my favorite methods, or when to use qualitative and quantitative, or what sample size do I need? These are questions that I think I've answered every week, maybe almost every week for the last one, to the point where the answer is literally printed on my T-shirt. I don't know if you can see it. It says, it
Oh,
depends.
absolutely. It depends. Great answer.
It depends. So joking aside, and no, this was not rehearsed. I actually literally wear the it depends oftentimes because it really depends. Yeah, joking aside, see the nature of there are several methods. It's like asking, hey, I do some gardening in my backyard. Which tool do I use the most, or which one tool do I love the most? Well, I honestly don't. It really depends on what job I need to do. If I need to remove some weeds, then it's a different role. If I need the hammer, then a nail, then it's a hammer. Right? If I need to dig, then it's a different tool. So it's the same with qual or quant when it comes to user research. It comes down to what are your goals? What are you trying to do? The reality, though, is that within the world of user experience, the most go-to method tends to be something called usability test. And this is direct observations of a small qualitative sample of representative customers. And the general rule of thumb is between 5 and 8 customers can help you identify issues. And if you are designing something, if you are building something, if you are the product manager for something, you have been deeply thinking about that interface or that product. You have been sleeping that problem and living through that redesign for so long that it almost becomes impossible for our brains to know what someone that has not been thinking about this will think about the interface when they see it, right? To the point where I had spent 6 to 9 months writing the book, I couldn't, at that point, my brain could not know what would someone that is looking at the book for the first time will react. And so I literally went on LinkedIn. Almost 35 people signed up to review the book, and I usability tested the book. I believe in this so much that I had to usability test the book to see if people understand what I'm trying to communicate. And boy, I'm so glad I did it, because they found so many things that I just could not. Like my brain just could not. And so qualitative research is the vast majority of UX research. Abhijit, to answer your question, that does not mean you should stick to just qualitative research. The chapter 2, the first 3 chapters are available for free on kuldeepkelkar.com. And so one chapter deals with sample size question, which is also related to the qual and quant, smaller sample size versus where do you need hundreds of people through a survey, versus a direct observation of 5 to 8 people, as well as the different methods. The general idea is the more variety of methods that you can use, the better your observation and your answers would be. You'll have greater confidence in your findings if you have larger sample sizes, but all of that has to be balanced with the amount of time you have and the money you want to spend on it.
Yeah, actually, let me ask you a follow-up and then we'll go to Abhijit. Some of the arguments against this approach come from people who've read like Walter Isaacson's Steve Jobs's biography, and where Steve Jobs says, hey, we don't do user research, we don't do focus groups, we just quote unquote build insanely great products. And I don't think that's like factually true, because even for building great products, you do need to understand user behavior. You do need to understand what is the easiest way for users to consume capabilities. And so what are your thoughts on that in terms of pushing back against people who are against doing quant or qual methods, and who are basically just trying to get into founder mode of just going ahead with their gut instinct, product IQ, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts there?
Yeah, Steve Jobs, and the other one that you didn't mention but gets mentioned pretty much in the same breath, which is hey, if Henry Ford had asked people, they would have said faster horse. Right? Fine. I mean, these two things come up so often that, and they're not wrong. Right? I mean, Steve Jobs was innovative, right? I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? There's no, but that doesn't mean everyone is Steve Jobs to begin with. I mean, that's not really an argument. That I'm just stating a fact. Having said that, as I said, user research is not about asking people if they like something. I mean, you can and you should, but the like is not a metric to be relied on small sample size. It is, at the end of the day, direct observations of whatever you are building and designing, or direct observations of the problem space that you want to understand a little bit more about. Innovation and innovative ideas can come to life anywhere, in the shower, while brushing teeth, while you're sleeping, and while you're visiting a customer. My experience,
or when you're taking hikes in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Exactly. Yeah. My experience is that at least for me, if I'm visiting the customer, if I'm observing someone use my product and then going on that hike and walk, boy, my brain is jumping up and down with all the observations and what it means, and triangulating those insights in my own, doing that thematic analysis in my own brain. That is the fun stuff. So I, I've never met Steve Jobs. I live in Cupertino, right behind where Steve Jobs used to sit, but never got to meet him. I'm sure he was a fan of direct observations of that customer problem. Indeed. And a deep understanding of that problem, and nothing wrong with observing customers before you launch the product. Yeah. I'll narrate one story and hand it over to Abhijit Toser, which is a CIO many years ago said, "Hey, do we need this user research thing?" I'm like, "No, you don't." And I write about it in the book. It's like, "No, you don't." And that CIO was shocked. It's like, "Aren't you selling me user research?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. It's your risk tolerance, CIO. You can take this product and launch it to 40,000 employees, and they will give you the feedback. You don't at that point in time, it's a little late. The product is out into the market. So it's your risk appetite that will dictate, do you want how many rounds of research and observations and ability to fix it before it goes out into the market. And
I
it was
love
a
that.
30-second sales pitch, the fastest sales pitch, which said you don't need research. It just depends on your risk tolerance.
Absolutely. And thank you for articulating the external products type of view, which was Apple and others, and then the internal product, which is CIO rolling out a new application for internal employees.
Yeah.
And both require user research. And it's a great articulation of the risk appetite that one needs to carry. Hey, if you don't really care about 40,000 employees and their experience, yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah.
But it is in your interest and your employees' interest that you do user research ahead of time and you de-risk your product and product launch, even though it might be internal. That's a great story. I love that.
Yeah.
With that, let me give the talking stick to Abhijit Toser. And Abhijit, you've been at the intersection of large enterprise transformations, whether it was in your consulting life or now as leader at AWS. What is your view on qual versus quant and kind of user research and sort of your sort of worldview of approaching user research and these qual and quant methods?
Thank you. I think I want to go back to what you and Kuldeep were talking about, and this is very often people use that example from Steve Jobs, right? My point, I think usually what I say is that you're not Steve Jobs. You don't have his instincts and intuition, right? That's number one. So there are very few people who kind of carry that, intuition and instincts to be able to really understand what is good design.
And have the reality distortion field. Absolutely.
So going back to your question about quant versus qual, right? It's often a fight, especially in a company that I work for, very data obsessed, data driven kind of a company, right? And I've seen both pros and cons of being that. My simple argument is that data is important. Data will tell you what, but data will not tell you why, right? Data will tell you what has happened. It will not tell you why it has happened. You need to really kind of go out and understand the color behind the data that you are trying to capture. So that's the biggest distinction that I make. And as Kuldeep said, right, it's not one method or the other, right? It's always a mixed method. You're always kind of using one method and validating the results of that method and verifying that with doing a follow up with using another method, right? So it's a very iterative kind of a cycle of you're learning, you're validating, you're building, you're again validating, right? So you have to kind of use mixed methods to be able to do that. I also want to quote what Jeff Bezos said about this topic, right? And he had something very interesting to say. And this is something that we often quote at Amazon, right? That he said that when there is a data and anecdotes disagree, right? Anecdotes are usually right? And that's what we
Mhm.
kind of follow, right? It's the stories the customers tell. They are the true stories, right? And very often you need to kind of focus more on the customer stories than what the data is telling you, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's a very profound way of kind of looking at it, right? I often and I think it's important, right? And especially because uh, over the last 10, 15 years, as we call it, data is the new oil or data is the new air and all of that. A lot of people think that by measuring, I can measure everything, right? Why do I need to do research, right? I think it's even more important if you're measuring everything, you need to kind of follow through with more qualitative deep dive research because, like I said, right, the data will tell you what has happened. Data will tell you about the customers who are using your products. Data will not tell you customers or potential customers who could be using your product, right? So you need to kind of go and talk to those customers, potential customers, right? If you're looking at market expansion, if you're looking at building a new feature functionalities, if you're looking at, building more, a suite of products, you need to kind of go and talk to wide set of customers. So there is no right or wrong answer here, right? It's important that a researcher or anyone who is doing the research, right? I think that's another thing that I talk about, right? Is user research, of course, is a very specialized role. You need to have that on your team. But at the same time, anyone who is talking to the customer is a researcher, right? You should always be looking for insights and validation and verification when you're talking to the customers, right? You could be head of engineering, you could be head of product management, you could be business development, you could be sales, you could be marketing, you could be customer support. Any customer touch point is a research opportunity, right? I have a team of technical writers. They need to be researcher as well. They need to focus on the most complex task where the user is most likely to request and look for documentation, right? They need to understand what are those most complex tasks where user will need some handholding. And I need to have a robust documentation to support at that moment of truth with the
That's
customer.
right.
Right?
You touched upon something that's super interesting, which is the whole organization needs to be aware of user research. And whether it's my sort of CTO or development organization or sort of the documentation and the knowledge base and support folks, everyone needs to be aware of user research, where the issues are. And I think that's an amazing way to think about user research, because you're really galvanizing the entire organization to be more user centric and customer centric. I do want to ask.
I want to, Abhijit, I
For
want
it.
to just interject. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
Kuldeep has got a chapter about democratizing research. I
Yeah,
want to kind of
there's three potential chapters that are related to this. And on my, which side is this? On my left here is the nurture engagement with the organization. So thank you, Vijay Tosar, for bringing that up. Democratization of research. I agree with both of you, right? I mean, research is just a generic word, a direct observation of a customer. I hope everyone does it, right? I mean, there are stories about Sam Walton walking around Walmart, just direct observing customers, and within the Walmart shops, right? And so that's an observation, and there are certain lessons learned in my consulting days through Users Home. We did a large scale democratization at several customers, and so there are certain best practices. Just expecting people to go visit customers doesn't just happen. There has to be some operations around it. So there's come research ops. Say, how do you schedule it? Which customers do you touch and how often, and what are the recruiting criteria? And there are to be certain processes put in place to get it to a large scale and work in a consistent manner. But it doesn't have to start there. Start small, again, just direct observations of a customer if and when you can. But to get that democratized against the entire organization on a large scale in a repetitive manner, that needs some research ops.
Yeah, and it also needs time and patience, because now you're starting to deal with human beings and you need to change human behavior. And as we all know, that's not easy. And it's a change management and cultural change to kind of get there, but it's the rewards there. You can reap great rewards by driving that change.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a general rule of thumb which says, hey, at least one customer observation, not just talking to them, but seeing what they are doing with your product in their natural habitat, in their natural office or home or wherever they are, at least one every 6 weeks. So the if you have observed someone 3 years ago, great, good for you. But you're starting to get farther and farther away from the reality of today. So the general best practice is at least one every 6 weeks.
fantastic.
Direct observation.
That's a great tip, right? To keep. I think there is a question that I wanted to ask, right? How do you ensure that the research, because see, the reality of today, right? We are in a very fast moving world where technology and user expectations are changing rapidly. How do we ensure that the research insights, they don't become stale, they don't become obsolete, just sitting on shelf, right? How can we make sure that almost like just in time, right? At the point of use, how can you make these insights available so that they're always fresh, always relevant, and always actionable?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because there's at its broad category, when you look at the insights, there's two buckets of insights or research findings. One is, hey, here's a specific feedback about this design of what worked, what didn't work. And you learn about it and you change the design, you tweak the design, and you're good. Right? That insight doesn't have a long shelf life because it was very narrow, it was very specific to a screen, or maybe buttons or text fields or whatever it was, right? And that doesn't need to go into a repository for someone to search 5 years from now. Maybe there's an underlying behavior that is, but that specific insight for that screen probably does not. What ends up happening, which is related to your question, is that over a period of time, all these insights get captured. And 10 years ago, I was quite frustrated. I've seen so many research decks that go on Google Drive or Box or Dropbox or whichever, and they just go there to die. Right?
Yeah.
And
It's like the
they're just sitting there.
proverbial shit. So they sit on the shelf.
Correct, correct.
Nobody
Yeah.
pays attention.
And researchers get, oh, we already ask that question and answer that question. Why is everyone asking that question again? My argument through at least some of the chapters is, don't get angry at people who are asking that. They just didn't know where it exists, which tells me this is a problem that AI can absolutely solve. Almost every SaaS company that works within the UX research space is definitely doing R&D, as far as I know, because now you can imagine, hey, I don't necessarily need a Google search. I don't necessarily need a generic chat GPT. It's not even a data question. I have all these insights sitting within my Google Drive, Dropbox, G Drive, whichever drive. Someone go in and bring me the thing that I'm looking for. I think this is where AI should absolutely be disruptive and make it extremely valuable for the larger organizations that are running a lot of research. For the last 5 years, 8 years, research repositories have been, many companies have been trying to solve it, but it always depended on heavy duty taxonomy and someone maintaining it. And people are not good at it. People are not good at remembering things. AI is. And so AI should definitely make this easier.
Okay. So Kuldeep, I have a follow-up question for you on this topic of AI, since you brought AI, and I was
Yeah.
kind of wondering, we are like 50 minutes into the conversation and we have not yet talked about AI. We have to, right? We are all in Silicon Valley. You have to talk about AI. Uh, so in the age of AI, right, where some of us think that we have codified all the human knowledge, right? Uh, uh, and think that we know enough about human behavior and needs. Do you think that we need more user research?
Um, Well, I mean, time will tell. I'm certainly biased. Yes, it's simply because humans are unpredictable, and I mean, AI. This is also a challenge with personas. Personas try to put humans into a single, and there's value to it when you use it as a tool. But boy, every individual is different at its core, and so. Uh, before I run every research study or my teams run research study, we all have a thesis of what will work, what will not work, but people still surprise us. The act of direct observation inspires you to ask questions that you had not asked before. So I'm not saying AI is not valuable. It absolutely is. It will help speed up bunch of things that researchers do today that are not productive, that designers do today that are not productive, product managers do that are not productive. So AI can absolutely make them more efficient. But until we are designing something for humans, and as long as that is true, I think direct observation of end users is going to stay. Now, there might come a day when AI is designing for AI, in which case all bets are off, and who knows. But hopefully not for the next 5 years. What are your thoughts? I'm intrigued with your thoughts.
No, no, I have very similar thoughts. In fact, someone asked me a similar question, and I said, some of the products and some of the problems that we're trying to solve, my users are probably still in high school or in college, right? Some of those professions and some of the roles, you cannot even find them on LinkedIn today because I'm designing products for tomorrow, right? So there are a lot of known unknowns and there are a lot of unknown unknowns. And research is absolutely needed. I need to go out in the field, observe people, talk to people, validate and test with people to get, because I don't think the knowledge that we have, any LLM that I have interacted with doesn't have enough knowledge about the kind of problems that we need to solve tomorrow, right? So I agree with you that AI will make things efficient. AI will allow me to also pull together, a vast knowledge that is currently all siloed and not properly indexed, and people just have no clue where it is sitting. Kind of just make it more accessible at a point of use, but we continue to create and generate new knowledge and continue to add to it.
Yeah.
I have two questions that I want to go through, and I want to make sure that because we have this podcast is going to go to fairly diverse audience, both here in the US as well as outside US, especially back in India. I want to ask one question, which is more around, all of us have worked in tech industry, right? We all live in Silicon Valley, right? So our view is kind of, largely colored by our experience working in the tech industry, for the tech industry, with the tech industry, right? Why is user research important for non-tech industries? How they can innovate products and services at speed and scale like tech industry, right? Any thoughts on that? Traditional industries, companies who are or startups who are not building tech products, why is user research important for them and how they can benefit from this?
Good angle and good question. So, I mean, my undergrad is industrial engineering. It was all physical devices and car dashboard designs, and so I didn't, even my master's was industrial engineering, and so the late 90s is when all of this human factors, by the way, has a history. The term human factors comes from World War II. So back then, air, aircrafts were designed for people with certain height requirements, and there used to be lots of accidents, and so that's where the mindset shifted to say, hey, why don't we design things, back then aircrafts or tanks, that are easier to operate for pretty much anyone with least amount of training. So the history of human factors or ergonomics is in the physical world, pretty much non-tech. It's the HCI, human computer interaction, that took off in the last 25 years. And we're largely these days thinking about technology, but the history of the field is non-tech. And so to answer your question, see, as long as you are solving a problem for someone, my assumption is that you want to have a deep understanding of that problem space. Go observe your users, how they are solving that problem right now. If they are using technology to solve the problem, great. If they're not using technology to solve the problem, great. It can be applied to service design. It can be applied to airport check-in. It can be applied to hotel check-in, right? And this field is vast. The principles of designing things for humans by observing what problems they are trying to solve, how they are trying to solve it, and then iteratively designing the solution and getting that feedback until it's gone live, that fundamentally exists in tech industry, non-tech industry, it doesn't matter what that aspect is.
Got
Abhijit
it.
Kadilkar?
To go back to Abhijit, actually, I'm going to kind of paraphrase that question for Abhijit Khadilkar in a different way, right? Abhijit, many startups and product companies, right, struggle to gain traction with the customers early on, right? So how do you think research can help with achieving that product market fit early on for the companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually want to weave in some of the AI stuff we discussed earlier as well. So a couple of things. One is every company needs customers. Every customer has users. Those users are using products and services. And it is super important for us to understand that user behavior, that customer behavior, whether we are using customer journey maps, whether we are using any quant tools, surveys, any qualitative direct interviews, whether it's open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, whatever those might be. And we are understanding fundamentally that this is how users are using our product. I think you guys, I'm sure you guys have used Clayton Christensen's Jobs to be Done framework in some respects. I think that's another great example. I think one of the examples he gives is McDonald's, just to relate to another industry, right? And Clayton says, well, McDonald's realized that they are having a lot of sales of milkshakes. And people were kind of wondering why everybody's buying those milkshakes. And they came to the realization, and some of that was quite frankly by design, was that people who are going to work, they go through a drive-in at McDonald's, they order that milkshake, and that has enough nutrients and sugar for people to feel like they're having a full breakfast. Plus, the milkshake neatly fits into their car cup holder. So the job that needs to be done there is providing breakfast and providing nutrition and some sugar for their day ahead. And the McDonald's milkshake provided just exactly that. And it came in a package that people can easily buy and carry with themselves and just go about their work and be productive. And so that job to be done philosophy works really well. And I'm sure there's other techniques as well. Um, I think one of the things that's happening with other industries, however, was this view that we had for the last 10 years or so, which is every company wants to become a tech company. They just don't know how. But now I think with the advent of AI, I think every company will try to become an AI company. And I think that is a much more powerful view because every company has data and intelligence, et cetera, that they should take advantage of and use AI as I want to call it, for the lack of a better word, as a shortcut to getting into much more efficiency, productivity, experience, leveraging technology. And I think AI is going to be fundamentally game changing in more ways than cloud or mobile or any of these other earlier technology waves were game changing. I think AI is going to be much more profound. It's going to have much more disruption, and there will be winners and losers in this disruption. And we all should be on the winning side. And the way to win with AI is to really stay close to the customer, understand customers and users, and going back to Kuldeep's book.
Got it. Perfect. No, I think you said it right. I think AI is good to touch and influence and impact pretty much all the industries, not just tech. And there's a big opportunity for a lot of non-tech industries as well to take advantage of this. I know we are almost over the time here, but I want to ask two questions. I know, Kuldeep, you do a lot of mentoring and coaching to the young generation, right? Both undergrads as well as graduate students. And I've seen you actively doing that on LinkedIn and through ADP List and all of other forums. My question to you is, what type of foundational education is relevant for a career as a user researcher? Do you think that a background in liberal arts is relevant, is important? Education in design, ethnography, economics, philosophy, psychology, history, languages. Just your thought, what have you seen? What really kind of prepares you for a role or a career in user research?
Yeah. Yeah, as you mentioned, I since last Jan, it's almost a year and a half, 2 years, I've been dialed up my mentoring, primarily through adplist.org. So if listeners are interested, you'll find me there. I generally have lots of slots open. Abhijit, to answer your question, I think at least in the last 25 years, I've seen good, high quality user researchers, even designers, come from a wide variety of backgrounds. So I don't know that I can put my finger on one particular branch of science or arts or at the end of the day, to be a good researcher, you have to have certain qualities, or I should say superpowers, 52 superpowers that you should be able to develop, uh, and have that deep empathy and understanding of that end user. But that's not enough, right? That is the job. I joke, it's less than half of your time gets spent on doing the research. It's bringing those insights and influencing the organization. That takes most of that's what separates the great researchers with the good or average researchers, right? So I don't know that is the act of conducting research that separates the good versus the mediocre. It's the how they bring those insights within the organization, influence that product. And so I've seen people with MBA backgrounds or with other backgrounds also be successful. So I don't have a simple answer. It's just be inquisitive, practice your craft, and then understand that that only takes you so far. You have to now figure out how to get your organization to accept those and do something with it. The actionability of it will determine if you are successful or not. And very
Perfect. No,
few
I agree
schools teach
with
it.
you.
Sadly, I mean, even my master's program, I love my master's program, but all I learned is how to conduct research. And that doesn't make me successful or anyone successful in the industry.
Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, this is so you highlighted such an important gap sometimes that we see, with really good designers and researchers that, they're really good at their craft, but when it comes to influencing the business and communicating and storytelling, and ensuring that, the insights really are seen in the right context by the business users and they're adding to the business decisions, high quality business decisions is so critical, right?
Yeah, I've been so frustrated. There's a chapter called Show Don't Tell. It's like stop talking, right? Show. We are the UXers that we are. So you can't just be talking about it. Show it and
Yes.
have that aha moment.
Excellent. Great. This is amazing conversation. I'm sure we can kind of go on for another hour talking about this topic. I'm going to close out on my line of questioning, with one question for you, Kuldeep. Uh, in your opinion, who should read this book and how do you think they will benefit immediately, right? And if what is that one thing that they can implement tomorrow if they read this book?
Yeah, I mean, every chapter is written in an actionable. They can pretty much pick up any chapter and there should be action. But who? That's the important question, right? So my primary ICP, ideal customer profile for the book, are researchers and research leaders, and who already are user researchers in the industry who want to drive influence within their product organization. This book is for them. That's the primary audience. But that's not it. Anyone that works as a designer, UXer, product managers, marketing people. I have known some engineering leaders that have looked at it. The even before I get into the chapters, I literally write it in the book. I personally buy a lot of business books. Amazon then ships it to me the next day. I open the packet, I open the book, I flip through it, I look at pretty pictures, charts, diagram. I try to get to the point within 5 or 10 minutes. If I like it, I'll probably keep flipping through it for another 5 or 10 minutes. That's pretty much it. I don't remember reading a book from start to finish, word for word. Now, I know there are people who do that, and I hope people enjoy my book word for word, start to finish. I'm not one of those people because I literally want to scan a book, get to the gist, and then move on. So I had to pretty much rewrite this book some 6 months ago to make it easy to scan. There's lots of pictures, there's lots of frameworks, there's everything that is important is bolded. So yeah, you will find a nugget of information that helps you today or tomorrow. Then I think I would have succeeded as an author and keep them wanting more. And so the book is written in such a way that hey, every 90 days, go back to it. There are frameworks again. There are questionnaires, and look for yourself where value is, and then keep flipping through it as and when needed.
Perfect. Now, I like the way you have structured the book, right? There is no start or end to it. you can jump to any chapter that is relevant for the task at hand and get immediate tips and recipes to do the job, right? So I love that. And I think after kind of hearing you talk about your journey that has culminated into this fantastic book. I think your book and then Abhijit's book Unlock are really complementing each other, right? It's really about how do you kind of be good at the craft, and then how do you kind of really unlock your potential as a leader? How do you influence others, right? With more leadership
Yeah.
skills and
Yeah,
yeah.
and let me just chime in with one quick thing. When I went through Kuldeep's book, it was so well organized. Strengthen your core, nurture engagement, demonstrate leadership, elevate your expertise, and then there's wild cards at the end. And of course, it's a user research book, but the way the visuals come through, those are super powerful because they're telling a story. And so a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so, yes, the content is great and I loved going through it. And the pictures is what really brought it alive for me. It made the example real. I could see like stakeholders talking about these topics and like team members talking about or interacting in a certain way. So I thought it was well structured. So I would highly recommend not only buying the book, whether you read it on a Kindle, I think that's great. But if you buy the hard copy, it's even better because then you can actually physically see the pictures. And in my mind, that's one of the biggest takeaways of the book is it's great content, great text, very well organized. But I think the pictures are what really did it for me. It really brought those things alive.
Absolutely. I think Abhijit Khadilkar, you really kind of summed it well. Again, everyone who's listening to this podcast, I strongly recommend, getting hold of this book. I am going to kind of give this book to some of my team members. It's such a great gift, right? If you're planning an offsite or team building and any other event, it's a great. I would say that Kuldeep, I'm going to gift a couple of copies of this book to some of my product managers. I think they need to kind of read the book as well, right? So your ICP can kind of really expand.
Yeah. So researchers, designers, product managers for sure, because they can then understand, there's some insights there for them as well. But hey, thank you so much. Abhijit sir, truly appreciate all the questions, the deep dive. Thank you for the detailed questions. And Abhijit Khadilkar, I'm going to take a snapshot of you talking about the book and use it as, I think you articulated it in such an amazing way. I would want to use it as marketing material. So thank you. Thank you. I
100%.
honestly,
It's
yeah. Hey,
20% royalties for signing up.
the thing that I remember about Unlock, by the way, is the again the framework, right? The structure of those things and the pyramid, right? These are analogies
Absolutely.
are easy for the brain to remember.
100%.
And
Love
I'm a
it.
big fan of structures as well. So thank you, folks, for doing that.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Kuldeep. Thank you, Abhijit. And thank you for calling us gentlemen.
Likewise. All right, you be well, and I hope to see you around.
Okay, time for me to get out of this cape.
Some superheroes wear capes, and that's Kuldeep is one of them.
100%.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You may want to stop the recording and then